Can you guess who drew this painting? Or what do you think this boy gets that makes him so happy? Keep watching to find out. Number 1. Princess Diana. The Season 4 finale of The Crown, titled War, focuses on Princess Diana's first solo royal engagement overseas, which takes place in New York. This trip marks a significant moment in her life, as it sparks her dedication to advocacy work. In this episode, Diana visits a pediatric AIDS ward in Harlem and hugs a young boy with the disease. This scene mirrors real-life events closely, showcasing her genuine compassion and desire to help those suffering. Diana began publicly supporting the fight against HIV in 1987 when she opened the UK's first HIV unit in London's Middlesex Hospital. During her visit, she shook hands with an AIDS patient. At the time, fear and misinformation about the disease were widespread, and people were afraid to touch those affected. Her gesture was monumental, helping to reduce stigma and raise awareness about the reality of HIV. In 1989, during her visit to Harlem Hospital in New York, Diana made a powerful impression. She was seen pausing to stroke babies and holding a 7-year-old boy in her arms. This visit, similar to the one depicted in The Crown, highlighted her natural empathy and the importance she placed on treating everyone with dignity. Dr. Margaret Hegarty, the hospital's pediatric doctor, expressed how Diana's presence demonstrated that those with AIDS could be hugged and cared for, countering the prevalent fear and stigma. Diana's efforts continued throughout the 1990s as she visited AIDS patients in various countries. Her visits included a children's hospital in Brazil and a hospice in Toronto. Though this was a nice act, these pictures are nothing compared to those painted by the dictator himself. Number 2. Tears of Freedom. This image shows Jewish prisoners freed from a Nazi death train in 1945. 4 different faces reveal 4 different emotions, reflecting the horror of the Holocaust. The woman holding her child looks relieved rather than happy, focusing on her child's survival more than her own. The child's innocent face contrasts sharply with the surrounding chaos. Number 3. The End of Public Guillotining. On June 17, 1939, France experienced its last public guillotining. This event marked the conclusion of a dark era in its judicial history. The execution of Eugene Weidmann drew considerable attention. This moment ultimately led to the end of public executions in the country. Eugene Weidmann was born in Frankfurt, Germany. During the late 1930s, he and his accomplices committed several kidnappings and murders in France. One notable victim was American dancer Jean de Coven. These crimes shocked the nation and resulted in his arrest in December 1937. His trial, held in Versailles in March 1939, became a media spectacle. Weidmann was found guilty of multiple murders and sentenced to death. The execution took place early in the morning outside St. Pierre prison in Versailles. A large crowd gathered to witness the event. The guillotine blade fell, and the onlookers' behavior, which seemed to revel in the gruesome scene, caused outrage. The media coverage, including photographs and newsreel footage, further highlighted the disturbing nature of public executions. Number 4. Hitler's art career. Hitler, known as a dictator, also pursued painting. Between 1908 and 1913, he made hundreds of artworks in Vienna. He sold paintings and postcards to support himself, but found little success. After World War II, some of his paintings sold for thousands at auction. Some are held by the US government. Number 5. Che Guevara contact sheets. René Boury captured an iconic photo of Che Guevara. To achieve this, he used a composite of different negatives from various cameras. Each camera had a different lens. This approach ensured he did not miss a shot during his assignment in Cuba. At Magnum's Paris offices, Henry Cartier-Bresson reviewed the contact sheets of younger photographers. Cartier-Bresson had a unique method of critiquing. He would rotate the sheet slowly and study it from all angles. Bourrie knew Chay's pictures would face intense scrutiny. Cartier-Bresson was in Cuba for a life assignment, but had limited access to Chay. Bourrie's clever technique ensured his work stood out. But that's nothing when compared to what you'll find out about the most hidden affair in political history. Number 6. Olympic Protest. In the summer of 1967, thousands gathered in San Francisco for the Summer of Love. At the same time, many black communities faced riots and violence, calling it the long, hot summer of 1967. By 1968, the civil rights movement was shaken by the assassinations of Martin Luther King Jr. and Bobby Kennedy. Amidst this turmoil, Tommie Smith and John Carlos made a historic gesture at the 1968 Summer Olympics in Mexico City. As they stood on the podium after winning medals in the 200-meter dash, they raised their gloved fists during the U.S. national anthem. This act was a powerful statement against social injustices. Their action was met with mixed reactions. Many were disgusted, while others were inspired. Jesse Owens had tried to dissuade black athletes from protesting. His efforts were unsuccessful. Some believed their protest fueled racism, while others saw it as necessary for progress. Number 7. Famous Photograph. Photographer Henry Cartier-Bresson visited India to document its new independence. He captured a famous image of Nehru with Edwina and Louis Mountbatten. Nehru and Edwina were sharing a joke while Louis looks away. Later, it was revealed that Nehru and Edwina were having an affair. Number 8. Afghan Girl. The Afghan Girl is one of the most iconic images in the world. It was taken by National Geographic photographer Steve McCurry. The girl in the photo is Sharbat Gula, a student at an informal school in a refugee camp during the Soviet occupation of Afghanistan. She has often been called the Afghan Mona Lisa. McCurry is known for his evocative color photography. Born in Philadelphia, he graduated from Pennsylvania State University. After working at a newspaper, he went to India to freelance. There, he learned to wait for the right moment to capture the essence of human struggle and joy. Disguised in native garb, he crossed into Afghanistan before the Russian invasion. He started with images that were published worldwide and won the Robert Capa Gold Medal. McCurry has won many awards, including Magazine Photographer of the Year and 4 first prizes in the World Press Photo Contest. He has covered conflicts in Beirut, Cambodia, the Philippines, the Gulf War, the former Yugoslavia, Afghanistan, and Tibet. McCurry focuses on the human consequences of war, showing its impact on the human face. Number 9. Einstein's iconic moment. On his 72nd birthday, Albert Einstein was asked to smile for a photograph by Arthur Sayce. Tired of posing, Einstein stuck out his tongue. This candid moment became one of the most iconic images of him. Einstein, a theoretical physicist born in Germany, is best known for the theory of relativity and his famous equation. He also made key contributions to quantum mechanics and won the 1921 Nobel Peace Prize. Number 10. Iojima flag raising. During World War II, Joe Rosenthal captured a Pulitzer-winning photo of 6 men raising the American flag at Iojima. This image inspired the American nation. Soon after, 3 of these men died in battle. The government tried to rescue the remaining 3. 2 men were rescued, while the 6th man, Ira Haynes, refused but was removed from combat. Haynes lived with deep remorse over his friends' deaths. Rosenthal's photo was initially accused of being staged, but it was a genuine and serendipitous moment. Number 11. tragic moment. In 1995, a bomb exploded in Oklahoma City, killing 168 people. Among the victims was a baby named Bailey Almon, who had just turned 1. Firefighter Chris Fields was close to the scene and arrived quickly. A police officer handed him Bailey, who was critically injured. Chris checked for signs of life, but found none. He still took her to the ambulance, hoping paramedics might help. While holding Bailey, a photographer captured the heart-wrenching moment. This photo, showing Chris holding Bailey's limp body, became iconic. It won the Pulitzer Prize and spread worldwide. Chris didn't know about the photo until a reporter contacted him the next day. He was unaware of its impact and struggled with the attention it brought. The image represented the tragedy of that day and the bravery of the first responders. Chris felt immense guilt because he was the last to hold Bailey. He believed her mother should have had that moment. This guilt weighed on him for years, even though he was just doing his job. The explosion's aftermath was devastating, especially with so many children among the victims. Chris, a father himself, found this especially hard. The emotional scars from that day stayed with him for a long time. The photo brought attention to his heroism, but also deepened his sense of responsibility and sorrow. Years later, Chris met Bailey's mother, Aaron Almon Koch. He was anxious, fearing her reaction. Instead, Aaron thanked him. She noticed the way he held Bailey, saying it showed he was a dad. This meeting helped Chris begin to heal from the trauma. He served the Oklahoma Fire Department for over 30 years. Number 12. Heart surgery. In 1987, Dr. Zbigniew Religa performed a heart transplant in Poland. The surgery lasted 27 hours. Dr. Religa watched his patient's vitals after the operation. His assistant, exhausted, slept in the corner. The patient, Tadeusz Zikowicz, survived and lived for 30 more years. Dr. Religa was a pioneer in heart transplantation in Poland. Despite the surgery's high risks, he succeeded. The operation marked a significant achievement in the medical field. The photo of this moment was taken by James Stanfield. It shows the intense dedication of Dr. Religa and his team. The photograph showed Poland's struggling healthcare system during the 1980s. It was chosen as the photo of the year by National Geographic. This image also became one of the 100 most important photos in history. Number 13. Sudan Famine. Photographer Kevin Carter took a photo in Sudan. A famine-stricken girl crouched on the ground with a vulture nearby. He chased the vulture away after taking the picture. The girl reached safety. The photograph won the Pulitzer Prize. However, Carter faced heavy criticism for not helping the girl directly. The haunting experience in Sudan deeply affected him. Just 3 months after winning the prize, Carter committed suicide. Number 14. Tender moment. On September 11, 2001, the World Trade Center in New York City was attacked. 2 planes were hijacked and crashed into the towers. Nearly 3,000 people died that day. Amid the chaos, a photographer named Robert Clark captured a powerful image. He lived in Brooklyn and took photos from his rooftop. One of his photos shows a man comforting a woman on a rooftop in Brooklyn. This was after the second plane hit the towers. Clark's building was full of artists and creative people. They gathered on the roof as the towers collapsed. Everyone watched in shock. The woman was lying down, crying. The man next to her leaned down to kiss her. This photo captures the grief and confusion of that day. The attacks changed New York and the world forever. People came together in the face of tragedy. Number 15. Shuttle Tragedy. In 2003, the Space Shuttle Columbia faced a dire situation. It was returning from a 16-day science mission. On February 1st, as it re-entered Earth's atmosphere, it broke apart over Texas. The disaster killed all 7 astronauts on board. NASA had known the shuttle was damaged. The left wing had suffered damage during launch. NASA officials had a tough decision to make. They chose not to inform the crew about the damage. They believed there was no way to fix the shuttle. Repairing it in space was impossible. The shuttle was too far from the International Space Station. Sending another shuttle for rescue would take too long. NASA officials thought it was kinder to let the crew continue their mission without fear. They hoped for the best, but knew the risks. The decision was made to spare the crew from worry. The Columbia disaster was a heartbreaking moment in space exploration. But we are already halfway through the list. Keep watching, because some of the most rare and scary images of the past are yet to be discovered. Number 16. Powerful Woman. A lone Jewish woman stood firm against Israeli security forces. They were removing illegal settlers in the West Bank. This powerful photograph by Oded Balti won the Pulitzer Prize. It captures the strength of one person facing authority. Number 17. Fragile Hope. In 1980, Mike Wells captured a moving photograph of two hands. One hand belonged to a Catholic missionary, the other to a little boy from Uganda. The boy's hand was thin and frail, resting gently on the missionary's hand. Extreme hunger had left the boy's body emaciated and weak. He was one of many victims of the famine in Karamoja, Uganda. Mike Wells was a British photojournalist. He took the photo while working in Africa. He was part of a project for Save the Children Fund. Wells was covering an anti-polio campaign in Malawi and Swaziland when he visited Uganda. Wells went to a seminary where monks known as the Verona Fathers were distributing food. At that time, Karamoja was suffering from a severe drought. The drought led to hunger, conflict, and a lack of food. Around 30,000 people lost their lives because of the famine. Number 18. New Shoes. In 1946, Life magazine published a photo of a 6-year-old orphan named Werfel. He had just received his first pair of shoes. This was part of the Red Cross post-war relief effort. The joy on Werfel's face was clear. It was a moment of pure happiness. Number 19. Moon Visor. During the Apollo 11 mission, Buzz Aldrin was photographed on the moon by Neil Armstrong. This photo shows Aldrin with Armstrong's reflection in his visor. The photo is famous, but does not show Armstrong well. Michael Ranger, a visual effects artist, decided to unwrap the reflection in Aldrin's visor. He used his skills in visual effects to create a clearer image. The reflection in the visor is like a mirror ball. Ranger shared his work on Reddit, where it went viral. He used ultra-high-resolution photos. He used ultra-high-resolution scans of NASA photos. One scan was 1.3 gigabytes in size. Ranger took the reflection from Aldrin's visor and made it into a panoramic image. He sharpened and color-corrected it using Photoshop. The visors are coated with gold, so he removed the gold color. He added more room around the edges of the visor. This made the final image more accurate. The photo shows Armstrong standing next to the Eagle lunar lander. You can see the Earth as a pale blue dot in the upper right of the frame. Ranger's work allows people to see what Aldrin saw when the photo was taken. The image can be viewed in a 360-degree photo viewer. It gives a new perspective on the iconic photo. Ranger also applied this technique to other NASA photos. He worked on a photo from Apollo 12. This photo shows Charles Pete Conrad climbing down the ladder to the moon. Ranger used the same unwrapping method. He also worked on a photo from Gemini 4. This photo shows Ed White during the first NASA spacewalk. White was tied to a tether and used a zip gun to move around. Ranger's work gives a new view of these historic moments. His unwrapped images show details that were not clear before. This technique provides a deeper understanding of the astronauts' experiences. Ranger's work is a blend of art and science. It shows how technology can bring new life to old photos. His unwrapped images are a unique way to look back at the history of space exploration. They offer a fresh perspective on iconic moments. Keep watching, because at the end we'll show you a 1958 futuristic car that can surpass most of today's car series. Number 20. Bhopal Disaster. On the night of 2nd December 1984, A gas leak started at the Union Carbide pesticide plant in Bhopal. The gas began to spread through the city. By early morning, winter winds had carried the poisonous gas, covering the area. The gas leak killed at least 3,500 people. Many others were injured. Bhopal was known for its natural beauty and historical heritage. This disaster changed the city forever. The effects of the gas leak were severe. Hundreds of thousands of people were affected. The Bhopal disaster is one of the worst industrial disasters in history. The gas leak left long-lasting scars on the community. People suffered from health issues for many years. The tragedy brought attention to industrial safety. It highlighted the need for better regulations. Number 21. Nuclear threat. On August 6, 1945, the world saw the first use of an atomic bomb on Hiroshima. This date now marks 80 years of reflecting on the horrors and dangers of nuclear weapons. What you are seeing is the big white cloud generated by the impact of the bomb. It serves as a reminder of the destructive power that nuclear weapons hold. This event leads us to question if any nation should believe that nuclear weapons can be used, or if a nuclear war can be won. The US, under President Trump, moved to dismantle nuclear arms control treaties. This includes the new START, which limits the number of active warheads in the US and Russia to 6,000 each. Talks on renewing this treaty began late, with the US demanding that China be included despite its much smaller arsenal compared to the US and Russia. The US has yet to explain why other nuclear-armed nations, like France and the UK, are not included in these discussions. Marshall Billingsley, representing the US in these talks, stated that President Trump believes the US knows how to win nuclear arms races. This belief raises concerns about the possibility of a new arms race and the threat it poses to global security. The US has shown a pattern of withdrawing from treaties, such as the Paris Climate Agreement and the Iran nuclear deal. This behavior suggests a preference for avoiding long-term commitments that require negotiation and compromise. The bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki are also seen through the lens of racial dynamics. Elaine Scarry argues that racism played a role in the US decision to use nuclear weapons on Japan. She notes that racism can make it easier to justify actions against those perceived as less than human. This perspective adds another layer to understanding the motivations behind the bombings. The US has also tested nuclear weapons in areas inhabited by marginalized populations. The Marshall Islands and New Mexico saw significant testing, resulting in long-term health and environmental impacts for the local populations. Number 22. India's Independence Day. This is the photo of Pandit Nehru declaring the birth of a new nation. On August 15, 1947, India became an independent country. Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, the first Prime Minister of India, delivered his famous Tryst with Destiny speech at Parliament House in New Delhi. The program began at 11 p.m. with Sucheta Kripalini singing Vande Mataram. Then the President of the Constituent Assembly, Rajendra Prasad, addressed the session and reminded people about their duties in independent India. Chaudhary Khalika Zaman, a Muslim League leader from UP, seconded Nehru's motion. Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan delivered a speech before midnight, highlighting India's unique achievement. At the stroke of midnight, Rajendra Prasad read out the pledge. The day was lucky for him because on August 15, 1945, the Japanese army surrendered during World War II, when he was the commander of the Allied forces. The flag hoisting ceremony was held at Red Fort in the morning, and this tradition continues today. The swearing-in ceremony also took place in the morning, with 22 ministers in Nehru's cabinet. Number 23. Flower Protest. In 1967, Mark Reboud captured a photo of Jan Rose Casimir placing a flower on a soldier's bayonet. This happened during a protest at the Pentagon against the Vietnam War. About 100,000 people attended this protest, but the soldiers stood firm. The photo shows a powerful message about peace versus war. A single flower stood against armed soldiers, symbolizing hope and resistance. Mark Raboud's iconic photo shows a young activist named Jan Rose Casimir. She's planting a flower on the bayonet of a soldier. This soldier was one of 2,500 guarding the Pentagon against a protest of 100,000 people. Number 24. Anne Frank. This photo shows Anne Frank a few months after her family went into hiding. It was taken in October 1942. Anne's diary, written during this time, became one of the most important records of the Holocaust. Number 25. Berlin Wall falls. The Berlin Wall separated West Berlin from East Berlin. Its demolition started in 1990 and finished in 1992. The fall of the Berlin Wall allowed Berlin to reunify. Before the wall, 3.5 million East Germans fled to West Berlin. Between 1961 and 1989, the wall's deadly force stopped most escapes. Over 100,000 tried to escape, and more than 5,000 succeeded. The death toll from these escape attempts ranged from 136 to over 200. In 1989, revolutions in Eastern Bloc countries like Poland and Hungary caused changes in East Germany. Events like the Pan-European Picnic led to the fall of the Iron Curtain. The Berlin Wall fell on November 9, 1989, after weeks of civil unrest. East Germans crossed the wall to West Berlin and celebrated with West Germans. The Brandenburg Gate opened on December 22, 1989. The wall's demolition began on June 13, 1999 and ended in 1994. The wall's fall led to German reunification on October 3, 1990. Number 26. Azorian Hoods. The Azorian hood, also called capote e cappello, is a traditional garment from the Azores. It was commonly worn until the 1930s. The hood's origin is debated, with some historians believing it came from the Flemish settlers. In the 15th and 16th centuries, many settlers from Flanders, Genoa, Britain, and France came to the Azores. This mix of cultures shaped the island's traditions and customs. The hood is a long, dark cloak with a large cape, designed to protect against harsh weather. It is made from thick, durable materials that shield from rain and wind. The design varied across the islands. On Fayal, the cape had a wedge shape resting on the shoulders. A common feature was the heavy electric blue cloth, often passed down from mothers to daughters. Number 27. Soviet Thaw. The 1960s Soviet thaw brought a shift in photography. Official propaganda images gave way to candid moments of real life. Vladimir Lagrange, who loved photography from a young age, captured friends, family, and strangers through his lens. He started his career in 1959 as a photojournalist for TASS, the main news agency. Lagrange documented Soviet life with a lyrical touch, focusing on everyday moments. He aimed to show the true lives of workers, pilots, doctors, miners, and farmers. After Stalin's death in 1953, Nikita Khrushchev's rise marked a turning point. The thaw era began with a departure from Stalin's oppressive policies. Number 28. Second Meetup. In 1956, a German child met her father for the first time since she was 1 year old. Her father, who was a World War II prisoner, was released by the Soviet Union after years of captivity. The reunion was part of Die Heimkehr des 10.000, or the Return of the 10,000, marking the release of the last German prisoners of war by the Soviets. In 1955, Konrad Adenauer visited Moscow and secured the release of these prisoners in exchange for establishing diplomatic relations with the Soviet Union. West German press reports highlighted how well these men had survived their imprisonment and how eager they were to return to their roles as family providers. The Soviets temporarily halted the release when they realized the Federal Republic was delaying the agreed exchange of ambassadors. Most returning prisoners came through the Gangsterkangslager Friedland, a transit camp in Niedersachsen set up in 1945 near the East German border. Number 29. Software vending machine. In 1987, Nolan Bushnell introduced the Kuma MetaWriter. This machine allowed users to buy software like they would buy a soda. Users inserted ROM cartridges, selected the software, and the machine copied it after payment. Bushnell planned to have these machines in service stations across North America. Despite its innovative approach, the MetaWriter did not make a big impact on the market. Number 30. Futuristic car. The Firebird 3 was built in 1958. It was the most influential model among the Metarama Firebirds. Its design inspired the 1959 Cadillac. The Firebird 3 had sculpted surfaces and dramatic rocker panels. These features appeared on the Cadillac. The 1961 Cadillac also adopted the Firebird's rear skegs. This car had minimal chrome and no parallel lines. Its tail fins had an innovative twist. The designers took inspiration from fighter aircraft. The Firebird was not meant for production. It showcased General Motors' technological and design capabilities. It debuted in the 1959 Motorama. This concept car had a fiberglass body with 7 short wings and tail fins. It looked very futuristic. It was a 2-seater powered by a 225 horsepower Whirlfire GT305 gas turbine engine. There was also a small 2-cylinder 10 horsepower gasoline engine to run the accessories. The exterior had a double bubble canopy. Advanced features included cruise control, anti-lock brakes, and air conditioning. It also had air drag brakes like those on aircraft. These brakes emerged from flat panels to slow the car from high speeds. The car had an ultrasonic key to open the doors. It also had an automated guidance system to avoid accidents and a no-hold steering system. Instead of a steering wheel, it had a joystick between the seats. And now, if you want to see something even more disgusting and creepy about history, then just click on the video on your right-hand side.